Woke right.
Oh yeah, wait. What do you think about James Lindsay's
I
movement?
think it's funny. I think it's a funnier move to repurpose the term woke right in the exact opposite way that James Lindsay intended it to, as sort of a. And I mean, I don't have anything against James Lindsay's called me woke right and quote tweeted me several times, called me woke
Damn.
right. I don't take it personally, but he means it like the far. It's basically like right wing critical race theory, right wing woke is well, yeah, woke right, but like there's diffuse power structures, and they don't want you to know the truth, which is sort of like what Robin DiAngelo would say about white supremacy and all that. And there is some truth to that, but I think it's a better term to apply to the like the Douglas Murray type crowd who literally sounds like a woke SJW playing identity politics when it comes to Israel, which is
Wait, I'm
how I
curious.
use it.
Backing up for a second, what do you think James Lindsay's problem is right now? What do you think the problem he's experiencing is? Or why do you think
I
he's like
don't
fighting
know.
with the
It's
right?
clear he has a problem because he keeps just. I think he's obsessive about. Let me hold on. Let me say this in a non-judgmental way, because there's a chance he sees it. If I were talking to James Lindsay, what would I say? I think James Lindsay's personality type is one that allows him to do incredibly deep, sophisticated dives into philosophical issues, which is this whole new discourses thing, and how he became, as informed as he is on like woke ideology. But I mean, a while ago, he used to say, like 2 or 3 years ago, he might still say this. He would say, like, we are in the midst of a Maoist revolution. It's like, no, we are in the middle of a Maoist revolution. It is Maoism in our public schools. And it's like, sure, I get the point that he's making, but it seems to me it's very obvious when you say it's Maoism. It's sort of like saying everyone's a Nazi. Like, guys, Nazis have literally taken over. It's like
Uh-huh.
the connotation that people have with Nazi and the connotation people have with Mao is like, okay, if we're really living through a Maoist takeover, well, I'm still able to play fucking Age of Empires 2 on my computer and my kids are fine, so who cares? So this guy's clearly exaggerating. And so I think James Lindsay has difficulty reading the normie vibe, and he's then gets too worried. He gets too, like, he thinks things are worse than they are, or at least he's not good at communicating to the normie how bad things are because he over exaggerates how bad things are. And with the woke right, it's like, I mean, obviously to steal, man, it's like, of course, there's extreme far right anti-Semitic nonsense that's going on the far right. Genuine Nazis, as we discussed earlier. But that is not how that's not how I see the term being used to label people. I see it being used to label people like Tucker Carlson and
Wait, so
Dave Smith.
backing up a bit. So try to summarize. I'm just curious. So
Yeah.
why do you think? I'm sorry. When I said why do you think James Lindsay has a problem, I wasn't looking for, or I'm not looking necessarily for an explanation of like how did he get there, but like if he were to describe this is my issue right now, what do you think he would say? I guess why is he having an issue with the right?
Oh, you mean, sorry, you mean what is James Lindsay's issue about the woke
His-
right?
Yeah, his main contention. Yeah.
Yeah, that they act like woke people, that they basically say America's bad, American history is not true. It's like the 1619. I think the best one-to-one metaphor would be like the 1619 Project was the woke left's attempt to say America really is fundamentally racist, right? Because history really started in 1619.
Sure.
And the woke right, according to Lindsay, will say, well, actually, America and like U.S. empire, U.S. imperial, America's really the bad guys, dropping nuclear bombs, bombing Dresden, whatever. But like, truly, America's bad, and history is a lie, and you need to wake up to the truth that there's a conspiracy against you. The woke left would say that it's white supremacy and the patriarchy is the conspiracy, and the woke right would say Jews and mainly just Jews, I think.
Okay.
And that's how James Lindsay would see it. And there's, of course, truth to that, but that's not how that term is getting used. The term is getting used to label people like Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith as woke right, which is complete nonsense.
Interesting. Okay. This is my view of it, and you tell me if you agree or disagree. I feel like the issue that James Lindsay is running into is, I think, okay, this is going to come negatively loaded with a lot of current conservative stuff, so I'm sorry. I'm not trying to trigger you, okay? Or be mean, all right? Not to you, but to conservatives. I know you get mad when I mean to conservatives, okay? But I feel like I know, disappointed. I feel like James Lindsay probably has a lot of principled positions on subjects related to, say, freedom of speech or censorship. Like, we'll just say freedom of speech. I'll just use that one example, right? And I think that when you saw the woke left, one of his big issues with the woke left was their attacks on things that were fundamentally like a part of the rule of law or like the Bill of Rights, stuff like related to the freedoms that we want to enjoy in a healthy liberal society or whatever. I think that one of the issues that James Lindsay has had is if you were a principled type conservative, and then you look and you see now what people like Elon Musk and Trump are doing when it comes to all of the legal stuff that Trump is engaged in, or like Elon Musk banning people or seemingly censoring people from X that he doesn't agree with. I think people like James Lindsay got a little bit mind fucked because they felt like they were among friends when they were like, guys, we think censorship is bad, right? And then they're having this moment where they're like, oh shit, you guys didn't think censorship was bad. You guys just didn't like when you were being censored. But now that you're in power, now you want to censor the other people. And I'm not in good company anymore. Fuck. I feel like that's the experience that he's having.
I don't think so, because the first off, I don't know what are you referring to, like Trump censoring people criticizing Israel on college campuses, like that type of stuff?
That could be one thing. Yeah, sure.
The people that James Lindsay would call the woke right are speaking out against that. What I believe the real woke right would be the people who support that and say, well, anti-Semitism is hate speech and therefore is a justification. That's what the Republicans are doing. They're saying because using anti-Semitism as a justification, we're going to censor speech. That is what I would call real woke right behavior, which is what Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith would speak out against and have spoke out against. But that's not who James Lindsay is calling the woke right. James Lindsay is calling the Tucker Carlsons and Dave Smith's woke right because I think Dave Smith or James Lindsay he sees the anti-Semitic current on the right and correctly worries about it, but then incorrectly attributes to Dave Smith and Tucker Carlson that sort of level of anti-Semitism, which is, I think, self-evident nonsense.
I guess so.
That's the mistake he's making.
We could look up tweets because I haven't seen it. So my impression of it could actually be completely wrong. If I see a few things, I'm like, oh, okay, then I just didn't understand, I guess, what his position on this was. If he's calling people like Tucker Carlson or Dave Smith part of the woke right, my guess is going to be because he sees that these figures are basically completely silent when it comes to criticizing Trump's abuse of powers against things like freedom of speech.
No, I think this might just be a fact of the matter. You might have the wrong impression.
Yeah, I could. That would be good because then it means my read is totally wrong. So I'd be good at error correcting.
Yeah, he may have. I'd be interested I would be very happy to see James Lindsay criticizing the people who are using the danger of anti-Semitism as justification to censor people. I have not. And I could be wrong. I haven't seen it. And there's, I don't know how many thousands of people watching. They can look it up and send it to you. But that's not how the whole woke right debate is. Like Tucker is James Lindsay saying Tucker Carlson is woke right because Tucker Carlson often talks about all of the terrible shit that the U.S. government has done. And as justification for like, yeah, history as we taught it isn't necessarily true. And I think James Lindsay is pro-Israel. I mean, which is, perfectly fine to be, but then that's what's causing him to use the term incorrectly. But
so if James Lindsay is criticizing Tucker Carlson or criticizing Dave Smith, you don't think it's because of like...
I don't think James Lindsay has explicitly said he has said Tucker Carlson is the woke. Same with Konstantin Kisin and that whole atheist part of the IDW, like hardcore atheist IDW types.
Well, do you think it's because these people are like engaging in a lot of the same kind of like historical revisionist conspiratorial stuff that James Lindsay would have said the woke left would have engaged in?
Yeah, that is what he is saying. That is his claim. Now it depends on what you mean by historical revisionism, because like, for example, if I were criticizing the woke left, it's like the idea that modern Black American, that on average Black Americans in the United States are still suffering from, the United States government policies, it's like that is objectively true. The problem with the woke left is then they therefore say the American ideal as such is racist to its core. Like we need to tear down America as such. Whereas when I see people like Tucker Carlson, Dave Smith, it's usually rooted in, no, America has, a rich history of freedom and all that shit. But we cannot ignore the obvious horrible shit that America has done and the lies that it's peddled and all that, which I think is very reasonable. But then people say, oh, well, they're functionally doing this. They're criticizing U.S. imperialism or U.S. government abuses. And well, the woke left is doing it. So we can call them the woke right. It's like,
I would be surprised if James Lindsay was criticizing Dave Smith because he was criticizing America. My guess is going to be, and we can just look this up actually because I'm curious.
Go ahead.
My guess is going to be that he's probably criticizing it because now Dave Smith has become like hardcore into like all of the anti-American conspiratorialism, kind of like the left used to be.
Well, let's do the fact of the matter. What are you referring to as the anti-American?
So like every time Dave Smith talks about literally anything related to U.S. history, he's always going to be quoting like this guy who left the CIA revealed that there's like the deep state war machine apparatus and is all ordinary person. It's all military industrial complex, and like every single foreign affair that the U.S. has ever been involved in has always been controlled behind the scenes by these evil, horrible people for basically everything.
I think he's more nuanced than that. But I think, yes, he certainly...
That's where the nuance starts and stops, I would say. But based on the hours and hours and hours I've listened to him, unfortunately, talk about this stuff. But
this goes back to taste and perception. It's like I've listened to many hours of him as well, and I don't have that judgment. So what is that? Either one of us is biased or both of us are. Well, we both are, but I don't get that. It's like he's very even in his. Did you watch the whole conversation with him and Douglas Murray?
Yes, I did.
Douglas Murray.
Oh yeah.
It's like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's people. It was so interesting. It was so interesting to see all the propaganda around it of saying my side won, my side won. But I thought Dave Smith, on numerous occasions, very clearly said like, yes, I criticize Bush, I criticize Obama, there's plenty of reasonable nuance that he incorporates. Again, I'm not going to be able to repeat exactly what he said, but.
Sure, but like if I were to ask you, like, is there one positive thing Dave Smith has ever said about U.S. foreign policy?
Of course, I have no doubt, even though I can't name one right now. That's simply an inability of me to recall it, but I guarantee you. Okay. I bet he would, I could be wrong, but I think he would say, yeah, by and large, World War, fighting the Nazis and defeating Japan was by and large.
My guess is going to be that if he would say it, I can
all kinds of qualification, like we shouldn't have dropped.
He's going to say like,
that's fine.
Even when we interfered in World War II, that was just because we wanted to nuke the Japanese. And even when we did World War II, we didn't even know about the concentration camps. That was just America defending. Like he would say shit like this, right?
You are exercising what I regard as your poor taste in human relations, because that is not a very convincing caricature of Dave. You can do caricatures of people. I don't think it's particularly good.
So like I Googled this because I was just curious. For James Lindsay, Dave Smith, this is like the first tweet that came up. There might be others. So in here, we have a tweet of James Lindsay. And so he's quote tweeting Dave Smith. And James Lindsay's tweet says, "Why is Dave Smith less insightful than the Washington Post opinion page?" And then I click through and I see Dave Smith's tweet is, he's quote tweeting James Lindsay, and Dave Smith is saying, "This is the equivalent of me going to Kansas and saying it's Brooklyn, and then when someone corrects me, James jumps in to say that since I'm from Brooklyn, I can't be corrected. It's a ridiculous non-argument." And then let me click through for James's tweet. Oh my God, fuck, I fucked up. I should have read all this first. Sorry, I didn't realize how far back this went. James says,
I will say,
by the Cultural Revolution is telling people what's happening here now mirrors her experience. So it's a good thing Dave Smith threw to Hill. She's only right. Sorry, go ahead.
I would say, as a general rule of thumb, I do not make judgment of people based on tweets. I make judgment of people based when video is available. There's a lot of implicit body language.
Oh, sure, yeah, I agree. But I'm just trying to. But like, there are a couple of tweets.
Go ahead.
I was there are a couple of tweets that he could make that would instantly dispel my current thoughts about him, or there are tweets I could see that would reinforce my thoughts about who he considers like woke right or something.
Maybe. Well, let me ask. I mean, maybe, and we can narrow it down. But let me ask you. I think I saw actually someone sent me I tweeted a clip from that Dave Smith Douglas Murray conversation, and it was I said this is what James Lindsay retweeted me. Fucking terminology. It should have always stayed Twitter. I said, I used to believe the woke right was a ridiculous label, but I now realize I'm wrong. The woke right is real, and Douglas Murray is their leader. And it's a 3-minute clip of Douglas Murray essentially saying that because Dave Smith brought up Paul Wolfowitz, who is the deputy defense secretary under Donald Rumsfeld, Dick Pearl and Paul Wolfowitz, Douglas Murray said like 4 times. It's weird. It's weird that you're bringing up people with Jewish last names. It's like, that's the definition of the woke right playing woke identity politics, except instead of using anti-black racism as their rallying call, it's anti-Semitism. It's like so for Dave Smith to even quote Paul Wolfowitz, the Secretary of Defense, Deputy Defense Secretary, is somehow like, oh, maybe that's vaguely anti-Semitic. And it's a 3-minute clip, and the clip, there's a reason it went viral, is because it's just so self-evident that Douglas Murray is engaging in exactly the kind of woke identity politics that James Lindsay would criticize the left of engaging in.
Do you think that if you had a party, you wanted to come to my apartment, you enter, I see you, you're wonderful, okay, product infused hair, okay, you're stunning 6'4", shredded body. You come in, you got 3 white friends with you,
6'4".
and you're like, hey, I got some more friends coming over, like this is cool, and I'm like, yeah, cool, let's party. You're here, a few white chicks come by, a couple more white friends come by, and then finally one dude comes through, and he's a black guy, and I see him, and then, we're chilling, I think, and I go to you and I was like, hey, just making sure, like, that guy's not gonna, like, take anything, right? I haven't really said, like, I hate black people, I don't trust black people or anything else, but
Yeah.
At the very least, would that give you a little bit of pause, where you'd be like,
Can I say 2 things?
yeah, you can say 3
Yes.
things, whatever you want, yeah, go for it.
So yes, 100%. I'd go like, what's going on? That's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say is, this is perhaps the worst analogy I've ever heard in my life, if you're comparing that to what Dave Smith was doing with Paul Wolfowitz.
Okay. The issue with a lot of the kind of dog whistling stuff, I don't even want to call it dog whistling because that term's been used. See how I'm abandoning the defense of that term?
Sure.
I think what Douglas Murray was getting at was there's this constellation of activities that I'm not being anti-Zionist. I'm not saying the Jews did 9/11, but I'm saying the Mossad was definitely involved. I'm not saying it's every single Jew is doing this, but like Dershowitz has a certain objective here. I'm not saying that Israel controlled us and did this, but I'm saying it was convenient that we went after Iraq. I'm not saying that Zog and our government is controlled by Zionist foreign policy, but there were 7 countries listed by Israel that the U.S. has now been like. I think when you do that over and over and over again, I think it behooves you to explain, like, or at some point you should be at least aware of how it looks. And I think to act like kind of clueless, where it's like, well, why would you even think anything here? Yeah, I think that was kind of what Douglas Murray was pointing out.
And
I think.
yeah, and Dave Smith responded very correctly, I think, by saying, yeah, look, I'll just ask you this.
Wait, you'll ask me this, or he said,
sorry, no, separate.
Okay.
To the point of like, well, but hey, I'm not saying it's the Jews, but I'm blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, this is the argument that people make about like race and IQ statistics. It's like, who loves to bring up race and IQ statistics? The white supremacists. I'm not saying that they're bad people. I'm not saying it's blah, 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 whatever, but they love to bring up, people who self-identify as black score lower on IQ tests on average than people who self-identify as white. It's like and that is an objective fact. That is. So it's like, okay, because people who say that, and it's true that at least I mean, I don't know how the race and IQ discourse is going. I don't follow it too closely, but I would not be surprised if most of the people who talk about this issue are the racists who like to just, beat it home all the time. Yeah. It's like, fine, that's true. That's a real worry we have to consider. That in no way, shape, or form dismisses the reality of the fact, nor the importance of bringing it up in order to address the fundamental issue. Because, like, for example, with the race and IQ statistics, the guy that popularized that, Charles Murray, who is branded as a Nazi and all that, has said explicitly to Coleman Hughes, black guy, by the way.
I know, I interviewed him, yeah.
Yeah, the cultural component of the gap between race and IQ is big, is significant. So now we can say, okay, all right, so there is a gap, but we, at minimum, the guy who's been tarred a racist says there's a massive cultural component, which means we can do something about it. And so by being armed with that fact, we can now better diagnose the problem and therefore better allocate resources. Like, for example, instead of saying, well, we're not going to acknowledge there's a race and IQ gap there, and therefore it must be because of discrimination, because why else, right? It's like, so now we're going to spend all this money on DEI and useless nonsense, which if the problem was discrimination, you could in theory make a case that DEI would address it, even though it doesn't in practice, but at least in theory. But that's not the problem. The problem is the environmental factors that differentiate race and IQ. So how about we take all the money that was going to DEI programs, right? The 2.5 million that goes to Bosnia, DEI from USAID, and we put it towards early childhood nutrition or getting the fucking lead out of the water, like the fact there's lead in any water at all whatsoever. To the degree there is, I don't know how much there is, but these are the arguments that are made. It's like, by acknowledging real facts, even if they are difficult, even if there's a terrible amount of ideological rot that accompanies those facts, it's like, yeah, but those facts are important in being able to improve the world. It's very much like a video game, right? Like, the best sword is the one that damages yourself like 1 health per second, okay? Like that does a lot of damage to other people. So it's like, if you want that sword, you need to be able to wield it, and you need to be able to do the things that, stop you from going down that ideological route. And just to put a pin on it, with Dave Smith in particular, the reason I think it's a nonsense argument is because, one, Dave Smith is Jewish. And if you listen, as I do, to the far-right anti-Semites, they're very clear that Dave Smith is Jewish, and they don't like him for that. So the idea that Dave Smith is even inadvertently he's fomenting anti-Semitism against himself by
to be clear,
citing what is a very mainstream
Dave Smith
critique
does not get attacked on the related to Jewish stuff in anywhere near the same way that actual neo-Nazis do. People will use it as a insult, but Dave Smith is very clearly not part of the Zoggeist or whatever.
Okay, I have talked to people who could very well be self-identify as Nazis, National Socialists. And they're very clear that Dave Smith, because he's a Jew, it's in his genetics, he's philo-Semitic, he's a problem. Tucker Carlson's controlled opposition, by the way. His dad was CIA. Sure. So what I would regard as the faction of the far right that is genuinely anti-Semitic and genuinely poses a threat, absolutely. I mean, that's the side of the right that I'm worried about, and they hate Dave Smith, which is in part why I dismiss the criticism that he's fomenting anti-Semitism. Now, you can make a case though that still you need to have a responsibility to talk about it more, and maybe, but
sure. The thing that I'm saying is that you have to, if you're making arguments and you understand that all of these arguments are in service of something far more insidious, to act aloof or confused or whatever when somebody brings that up, I think looks really bad. It makes me feel like I'm not dealing with an honest actor. Sure. And I think that was the big issue when I was watching Dave Smith try to argue with Douglas Murray, is Dave was just acting incredulous that what? You're accusing me of furthering anti-Semitic stuff? Why? Just because I'm bringing up these things and I'm aligned with Daryl Cooper and Ian Carroll and all these, well, that's okay. So what? I can't talk about these things. There are going to be conversations. A really good one is around qualifications. Obviously, that was probably one of the things that blew up the most in that conversation when they talked about are you qualified to talk about a particular issue? If I were to, do you have qualifications? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So probably the most extreme version of this in my life probably would have been the Israel-Palestine debate with Muin Rabbani, Norman Finkelstein, Benny Morris, right? You know this, yeah. So going into this environment, I know that I am severely lacking in qualifications, and I know that if somebody were to press me on this, if somebody were to say hey, why the fuck are you even here at all? I'm not going to act incredulous. How dare you ask me that question? In my mind, that's an incredibly obvious question. You've got at least one really well-renowned historian. You've got Norm Finkelstein, who's probably the most popular published author about this. Muin Rabbani, he seems to be informed on the issue. I definitely seem like the odd one out. And I would expect going into any environment that I'm going to have a list, or I'm going to need to prepare justification for why the fuck I'm even here. That would make sense to me, So when
this is okay.
Go ahead. Well, I was just saying, when Dave Smith gets kind of pressed a little bit by Douglas Murray on the qualifications thing, that's a super fair question, and I think
agreed.
but Dave Smith like gets offended over it. Basically, it's like, what do you mean? I'm not qualified.
No, that's not my read of it. He says, well, first off, what you just said a few seconds ago, you're like, I wouldn't say how dare you ask me the question. I don't think Dave Smith said, how dare you ask me if I'm qualified or not. He made the point of, look, I'm an American. This is the media landscape. I'm free to talk about what I want.
But that's not really what he's doing.
Is it a good argument? No, I don't.
Well, no.
Not
It's an evasive argument. It's evasive. Because what they want to do is they want to live in the world of I'm just a comedian and LOL versus
right, which
I'm
is
brought here to
dishonest.
talk about Israel Palestine. And he is. Dave Smith is shipped around a lot on all these
100%.
podcasts from show to show because of Joe Rogan validating him. But then when he gets pressed on his credentials, he acts incredulous. Like, well, I'm just a normal American. I can just say whatever I want.
Okay, but to your broader point, like with the debate with Norman Finkelstein and Benny Morris and Moeen, ultimately your credentials don't matter. What matters is, are you in possession of the truth or not?
Kind of.
Argue on the facts.
Kind of, yeah. But I'm aware of the norms and I'm aware of the loading going into that environment.
That's fine. Yes. Okay.
But
Sure.
I'm gonna be aware of that, and I'm going to address that topic carefully, and because I think it's a valid question.
Okay, fine. I perceived him as addressing the issue more, like reasonably. Like, look, I'm telling you the arguments. Like what's the you've never been. It's like that's not. It's like Dave Smith, and I kind of hate this because this is a libertarian meme. I think it comes from argumentation ethics. And I think Stefan Molyneux popularized it, but he said that's not an argument. That's not an argument. I hate it because it's very debate bro, rational brained, and I'm all about vibes. But like at a certain point, it is true. Like saying you've never been. And I would agree. Dave's, I mean, if I were talking to Dave Smith, I'd be like, Dave, you do seem to care about this issue a lot. Why wouldn't you go?
Sure, but
Now,
like, I think that
don't you? Like, I'm sure he
argumentatively-
would agree it undermines his ability to communicate his idea.
Well, maybe, but that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that like argumentatively, I think it's a fair question, and I would address it, right? I've talked a lot about Israel Palestine. If I have been in. Sorry, bad example. But like if I had before I had gone or whatever, right? Then I would say like, yeah, there might be some additional perspective that I could gain on the ground that I might not have access to because I just read stuff or watch stuff. In that case, then that's a blind spot I have. I acknowledge it, and then we talk from there. And if you feel like there's some argument that I'm making that's undermined because I haven't been there, you can point that out to me since you've been there. Right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
that's it. I would never
agree.
I would never fight on that point. Like, who cares if I've never been there? That doesn't matter. Just argue the blah blah blah. That's an. I think that's an. Yeah, and I just think I think that it shows something. Like I say this a lot with social niceties, right? Like if you don't want to shake somebody's hand because you're opposed to handshakes, you have the right to do that. But it's very strange for you to act confused when people are offended that you aren't shaking their hand, and you should be prepared to defend that or explain that, right?
Sure, to the degree, and I like. This is a function of you don't like Dave Smith and I like Dave Smith. So we're both biased, including, myself too. And so I guess to the degree that Dave Smith did what you are doing, which I have seen him, I believe, I can't think of an example. Some Dave Smith fans commented on my video reviewing the debate that they were butthurt about this. Cause I had said, I've seen when Dave Smith says, I'm just a comedian, I just play at nightclubs or whatever. That's kind of a weak defense. Because he doesn't.
I don't like you
do
saying
that.
when you say weak defense. I don't think
I said it's wrong. It's dishonest.
It's evasive. It's evasive. It's dishonest. Yeah, I think it's different than a weak defense.
That's what I mean. Okay. Yeah.
Like a weak defense would be like, it doesn't matter if I've been there or not.
I mean,
right?
I don't mean weak. I mean weak morally. I don't mean weak in terms of rhetoric.
Okay.
So in that sense, we agree. But the reason Dave Smith is less so, at least in the context of woke right, my fundamental point was Douglas Murray very clearly engaged in sort of woke right identity politics. Did you see, this is a separate thing, did you see the clip of the rabbi testifying in Congress saying it's not enough to be anti-Semitic, you have to be anti-Semitic?
No, that's pretty funny though.
It's hilarious because exactly to your point, and you need... Far be it from me to arm you in your fight against the conservatives, Destiny. As you know, I get very upset when you criticize them. But if you want to just throw shit in conservatives' face, particularly the Trump-supporting conservatives, you can ask why. I mean, there's literally a clip of a rabbi in Congress saying it's not enough to be anti-Semitic, you have to be anti-Semitic. It was a anti-Semitism task force. Republican senator invited this rabbi. That rabbi, by the way, I don't know how close he is to Trump. He's close enough where he was the rabbi there was like a national day of prayer and there's all these different religious leaders. And that was the rabbi who was invited along with that one crazy evangelical lady that Trump has. So this guy is verbatim Ibram X. Kendi talking points, and not like they're saying this. It's making the exact same argument. It's like we're not against free speech, but when it comes, if it's facilitating anti-Semitism, that's not about free speech. It's about Jewish safety on campus or whatever. It's like, that's fucking nonsense. And the fact that not every, and many conservatives did, including Matt Walsh, who I suspect will leave, my bet will be he leaves the Daily Wire within, what are we at, May right now?
Oh, okay.
4 months. What is that, September? By September, Matt Walsh will leave the Daily Wire.
Okay.
Jordan Peterson might be too far gone, but we'll see. Or the Daily Wire is going to dissolve because what's his name stepped down, which would be hilarious in my opinion because I don't like the Daily Wire. But anyway, that's the woke right. The people the conservatives who would go, yeah, there's nothing wrong with this. There's nothing wrong with a rabbi coming in and saying it's not enough to be anti-Semitic. You have to be anti-Semitic, which it's not even that what he's saying per se. I mean, I disagree with it, but it's the utter sheer hypocrisy of like every Trump supporting conservative would say, Ibram X. Kendi, fuck that guy, woke critical race theory bullshit. It's like you are sucking the eggs of people who 100% believe that and invite rabbis to testify that. But you don't seem upset by that.
I don't even think anti-Semitism is a real problem on the right. I don't think that that's a thing at all.
What?
So that's fine.